delay. This is meant to be an introduction to Angular, and because it's not a presentation as it were, it's a meetup, so it will be very, very interactive. Very, very interactive would mean that okay, you have to say what you know about Angular. Would you choose Angular above every other framework that you know, or any other JavaScript framework that you know? So I'm going to start with. I think I didn't get the time. Sorry, I was. Yes. Maiwa. Okay, so Maiwa. Why Angular?
I say I won't use
Angular before. Okay. All right. So by the end of the say this presentation of the meetup generally, you should be able to answer that question. Like, okay, why do I want to do Angular or why Angular? Okay. Why Angular? Yeah.
So, I'm not to learn because that's what I use to learn to relate to fit in so my daily activities.
Okay. Okay.
Usually,
All right. Okay. One reason you want to use Angular. Now let me just start with that. And then you want to say something right. Okay. One reason why you will want to learn Angular is because Angular is a framework, and framework is something that makes your work easier, that makes your task easier. For instance, if you program in JavaScript, JavaScript is a programming language. So Angular is like a framework that gives you flexibility and makes you do more. Let me see, for instance, you want to write a click function. You want to write a click function in JavaScript, you have to probably select the DOM and do a whole lot of this thing to be able to do that. But with this framework, you just have to write few lines of code. So in other words, to do the work that is difference between both. That's Angular and JavaScript. You say Angular is easier to write with the two line of code. In JavaScript, you might have to write so many lines of code. Okay, so let's move on to the presentation. Okay, so this is the background of the study. Angular is a platform that makes it easy to build applications on the web. Angular combines declarative templates, dependency injection, end-to-end tuning, and integrated best practices to solve development challenges. Angular empowers developers to build applications that live live on the web, mobile, or the desktop. Now, I must tell you that this is one of my first KB presentation in Bincom. So you will see a bit of beginner stuff there, but it's good that I can go back to those things and see. So Angular enables you to build applications, web applications, single page applications that both on the web, mobile, and on desktop. Most of the applications you see people use Angular a whole lot. Why? Because it offers them a lot of flexibility. For instance, we are building an application in Bincom Devcenter, that's social lender version 5, and it was built basically with Angular. So it gives you this flexibility to build application with the web, mobile or desktop. JavaScript doesn't give you this as it were, but Angular enables you to do all of these things. To the next slide. Okay. Now, difference between Angular and Angular JS. Now, one of my team members, Bolanle in absentia, is not here. It was one that probably told me this sometimes last year that there's a difference between Angular and Angular JS. I didn't know then. I just thought they are the same thing, or I used to assume they were the same thing. If I go online to look at Angular material, most of the time I'm looking at Angular JS material rather than Angular material. So he had to tell me that there's a large difference between Angular and Angular JS. So this was different. I said, first of all, Angular is based on TypeScript, while Angular JS is based on JavaScript. Okay. So Angular JS is a different framework, which is the ancestor of Angular. But then Angular is the newer version and can also be called Angular 2 or Angular 4. I think Angular 3 was not published for some reason. But we have Angular, I think we have Angular 6 now, 7 up to 7. Okay, so that's that. So the ancestor, that means the first framework that came out is Angular JS. But then there's a newer version which is written in TypeScript, and that's what Angular itself. So you can put Angular 2, Angular 4, but then it's majorly called Angular, and it's a big difference between Angular and Angular JS. So I hope that's clear. So moving on, Angular CLI. So Angular CLI is Angular command line interface, and most of your projects you're going to write them in Angular CLI. That means you're starting up a project, the name of the project, and every other thing that you're going to do, you will need the CLI. And what is CLI? Okay, Angular CLI is a tool allowing to create, maintain, build, test, run Angular projects. So that's simple. It's like okay, I can't show that now. It's like you everything that you're going to create. That means your writing of the project, your writing of commands to maintain, to build. For instance, if you want to start up a project, you can do ng serve open to be able to start the project. If you want to build the project, you can do ng build production to be able to build the project. So all of these commands, that means Angular commands, they are written with what? With the CLI. So CLI is command line interface. So you can just open your command prompt and every instruction, every command you want to give, Angular has a CLI that enables you to do all of these things. All right. So I know a couple of people are learning Angular here. So question, right? And that goes first to the Benedict. Benedict, if you want to start up a project, just tell me how to start up an Angular project.
Command is ng is name and the name of ng as in
Okay, all right. So it's that simple. But then before then, you must have installed a number of dependencies for you to be able to use all of those things. Okay. So moving on, what's the difference between JavaScript and TypeScript? Mr. Shem, can you help us with that?
Okay. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. It's another language entirely. You can still call it JavaScript like JavaScript. So what it does is it tries to make the madness of JavaScript tries to correct it. So JavaScript is dynamically typed, meaning that you can just write your query going to well to compile, you have errors in the JavaScript, you have to find it when you execute your code or when you try to. So with TypeScript, you have something called types array, type array suggestion, which are allowed to really capture errors so you enjoy and develop, right? And then you have more control over what you are posting. And it's really more of an advanced set of JavaScript. You can really use latest features of JavaScript, ES6, ES7, ES6, really, or you do JavaScript, and then you compile them down to the whatever machine you choose, ES1. So it's just an interesting language.
Okay, all right. So I like one more that Mr. Shem there. He said correct the madness of JavaScript. JavaScript has a lot of madness. You can write anything, and maybe using you didn't declare your variable well, you didn't do this well, but then TypeScript helps you correct that. So just read it for the purpose of reading the slide. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript which primarily provides optical, static typing, classes, and interface. One of the big benefits is to enable IDEs to provide a richer environment for supporting common errors as you type the code, which is exactly the same thing Mr. Shima told us. Okay, so moving on. Okay, the basic building blocks of an Angular application are ng modules, which provide compilation text for components. Ng module collects related code into functional set. An Angular app is defined by a set of ng modules. An app always has at least a root module that enables bootstrapping and typically has many more feature modules. Now, if you see an Angular project, you open an Angular project, when you set up an Angular project, things you are going to see there is firstly, you see your components, obviously, but then aside the components, you will also see your ng modules, which binds every other thing that you are going to use within the app. So if you have several components, say you have the home components, you have the nav components and all of those things, but then there will be a central module that binds everything that you are going to use. Let's say, for instance, you want to make use of Bootstrap in your application. ng modules helps you to what? To bind Bootstrap within your application, within your project rather, so you can be able to make use of all of these things. And all these commands, you can write them with your Angular CLI. Just write install Bootstrap. There's a command to use for that. Install Bootstrap, install this, install that, and it will install that for you. Okay, so moving on. Components define views, which are set of string elements that Angular can choose among amplifier according to your program logic. So this is just defining components. like I said, for instance, it is the views that you see in an application. You can have various views. For instance, you can have this view is my dashboard. This view is supposed to take care of my home.ts. This view is supposed to take care of my maybe the footer. So you can distribute all of this into components so that when you are working on them or when you want to correct something on them, you know where and where to go to, know where and where to point to. Oh, there's something wrong with my footer. I need to fix the footer page. Oh, I need my FAQ page on this thing. Instead of you just going through all of the application or not knowing where it is, Angular already defines all of those components for you. So that's why when you are setting up an Angular application, it's good for you to have a flow of how you want it to look like. This is my root component. These are going to be my other components also. So it affords you all of these benefits really. Because imagine building an application as big as social media where you have so many components and you're having just one component and let's say about 1,000 lines of code for those things. You know, when you have an error or you need to fix something, you now start looking for them. Oh, where is this thing? Where is this thing? Where is this thing? But then with Angular, it gives you a view such that okay, I want to fix something within my what my footer. I want to fix something in my header component. I know where to go to. I know this is where I will find this, this is where I will find that. So that is one good thing that Angular offers us. Now, the next line says component uses services which provide specific functionality not directly related to you. Service provider can be injected into components as dependency. Now, aside components, there are services. Services will mean that okay, these are things that are made available to my project. For instance, you want to make use of data that are coming from the backend can store them in services so that when you want to use that services, you can call that services in any of the component that you already created. Let's say, for instance, I want to create a service called ingredient.service.ts that I'm going to use both in my header component, I'm going to use in my footer component, I'm going to use in some other component. Now, instead of me creating all of those things in my what's it called, creating them each of them inside component, I'll just create a service for every one of them that will manage all those data. So when I need them, all I just have to do is to go to my code and import that particular service. Once I import that particular service, every other thing that I need that has been defined inside the service, I can make use of it inside that component. Okay, I hope that's clear. Sounding like presentation already, and I don't want it to be. Okay, so next slide, Angular modules. Angular app has a root module, conventionally called named app module. I told us about this, which provides the bootstrap mechanism that launches the application. An app typically contains many functional modules. Now, there's a root module for Angular. I wish I can show an Angular project maybe later. Be able to show an Angular project so we can see all of these things. We're going to show you so you can say, okay, this is the app component, this is the app module. But then the app module is what binds every other module together. Now, each component that you create is possible that each component that you create needs a module, right? But then there is a central module where all other modules must be registered. Okay, so like JavaScript modules, ng module can import functionality and other ng modules and allow their functionality to be exported. Now, I said that before that you can import anything. So far, you already have them in your node modules, anything that you need at all. Let's say you want to use your controller, a nav controller. All you have to do is to go to your this thing and import them. Why? Because you already bind them into your into your application, so they are available for you to use anywhere inside the app. Okay, so every Angular application has at least one component. I've said this before, the root component that contains the component hierarchy with the page document object model. Now, each component defines a class that contains application data and logic and is associated with an HTML template that defines a view to be displayed in a target environment. Now, inside a component now, you will see your app component.ts, you see your app component.css, your app component.html. Now, in all of those things, your HTML is the view that you see. That's where you write the view, and you can write pure HTML inside of it. Write pure HTML inside of it. But then in your it also has this CSS what's it called, a CSS part, CSS page that's add the component of CSS where you can write your CSS. So unlike normal HTML page where you have to say maybe have a separate CSS, create a CSS folder, do this and this. Angular already have that for you. All you have to do is to go into that page, go into that particular page and do what you want to do inside. Then the .ts is where you write your logic. That's your JavaScript logic and your TypeScript logic. So whatever you want to do is being done inside of this .ts file. Say for instance, you want to get this item to be able to do this, to be able to send requests, get response from the server. All of these things you do them in your .ts file. Okay, so I should quickly talk about data binding also in Angular. Now, data binding are of two types. You have the property binding and you have the event binding. Now, event binding lets you have respond to user input in the target environment by updating your application data. Now, in pure JavaScript, we have something we call I remember now. Your event listeners, yeah, event listeners. But in JavaScript, you just call it event binding, such that it responds to everything that your user is doing. If your user clicks a button, responds to it, and one of them is what is the click function, such that once the user is clicking on something, it's an event, something is happening. So once you put the click function, okay, run this method, which I had something to show that. But it's just simple. You just write it, put a click function in your HTML listing, then set it to the function you want it to run. Now that function, you now take that function, copy it, and go and write every logic that you want inside your TS file. So it's flexible and it works very, 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 very well. Okay, so moving on, Angular also supports two-way binding and all of that. So my conclusion, Angular has great support for mobile apps as it was created for that very purpose. It addresses limiting factors such as navigation via touch, different screen size, and mobile hardware. Now, many times when we create this thing without Angular, maybe just with pure HTML and JavaScript, you have all of these challenges. Maybe navigation is not working, this is not working, the view is not okay in the mobile. I want the view to be like this in the desktop. Angular helps you undo all of these flexibility, and that's why it's a good framework to build both web applications, mobile application, and desktop applications. All right. So thank you.
Hi, do you have any questions? I want to know how do you determine what's going to put in compliments and what you need to put in change? Because the minute I give to company, I checked the company, I think there was just this app component inside, and then there was a special program related to pages. Yes. So since the component you can actually when you are going to want to use that, right? I mean the HTML for it. Okay, I think I don't know what that texture is directory. Like you have the directory, you have components, you have pages, probably have directory, you have services, those folders, the folders you get, right? That has to do with how you want to arrange your files. Depending on it's not as if it's a standard that you have to follow. That's the standard, except if it has components like that's the direction now, the left hand side. Yeah, there's component, there's filter and components, and so how you decide what to put in your pages or what to put in your components. That's what it's saying. Like, yeah, if you have a page, like if pages are how you want to, okay, every view you have oh, there's a page, and then the component is yeah, okay. I can just understand what you're saying now. Imagine you have like a number of forms. Right? Yeah, the number of forms. Now those forms, you're using them in not just one place. Right? You're using them in different places. Those kind of things might happen in the complement. Does that make sense? Complement, yes, inside the complement folder. In the complement folder. Imagine you have something like basically those bound form. You understand? You put that inside of the component. Then in your pages, what you can have inside the pages, you have things like dashboards, you can have that in the pages. You have maybe the things that are usually in the pages are the things you be saying. Yes, you see the form, but most times what you are saying, that form you are saying, is being used in another component. Things on another page somewhere else.
Okay, all right. So just buttress that. When you build an application, for instance, there are some things that you won't use in just one single page. You use them in several pages. So instead of you putting them as a page, you have to put them as a component because such things will still be used in other words, in other pages. For instance, you have your home page. For every home page, your header, let's assume your header will be the same. That means that header should come as a component because you're going to make use of that same header in other pages, using the FAQ page, in this page, in that page. So it's just the way you want to structure them, your directory. One of the sessions.
Yeah, yeah.
Fair enough. So you have been using
You know you say
so you have been using Angular for you. What are the that you have fixed?
Okay. I think some of the limitations is that are the errors that is maybe we want to so to say I'm trying to remember some of those but really okay the problem is maybe you want to with engine module most of the time you want to use a particular module it's not made available it's not giving you what you want as you want them to be. So that has been major limitation. But I think one of the things that I've come to learn is okay, it comes up with a lot of errors, but over the years I've learned that just read the error. From reading the error, you understand how to fix it. Before I didn't like Angular because everything just be red. But as I kept using it, I thought that just read them and understand it. Okay, this is what you need to fix. Go and fix this. Okay, the problem is from your app component, going to your app component and that. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. How many years around?